Welcome to Diversity, a place where we meet, interact, and exchange thoughts with people who have made culture their business. These are people, leaders, who actually bring the power of a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture into every aspect of their work and their professional careers. This series is brought to you by the Confederation of Indian Industry and by Avatar, the power of diversity, which has been powering workplace cultures for 25 years now. Today, I have with me Sonal Jain, Global CHRO, EPL Limited. Welcome, Sonal, to Diversity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soundarya. I'm really glad to be a part of this conversation with you.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you. And, our interaction, relationship, engagement, mutual passion, mutual admiration, I think goes back probably a decade or maybe slightly less. But whenever I think of you, Sonal, I remember the intentionality with which you approach not just your work or your career, but also the sort of duty that you feel the HR profession owes to the community, to the larger community. And I think that's probably the reason why you have won so many accolades. Your profile is glowing and it's filled with it. The Inspirational Women Leader 2024 by Transformance, the Dr. Tarita Shankar Awards for Excellence in 2024, Top 10 Women CHRO by Women Entrepreneur Magazine, Most Iconic Women Leaders, Most Iconic HR Leaders by the World HRD Congress, and the list goes on. But one which is really, which made me pause and made me want to ask you this question is the top 100 HR leader 40 under 40 that you received, and subsequently a beautiful post of yours on LinkedIn where you talked about how your son wished you and wanted you to win this. And that was a beautiful reflection of yours, and one that clearly shows that you mean business, you're here to make a difference, and that the position that you today hold, that of a global CHRO, is one that you're going to make a lot of difference to. So, with those words, Sonal, I'd like you to share with us how did this passion for HR, for really making a difference, come to you, especially when you started off your academic career as an engineer?
Great. I mean, thank you so much. I just feel very humbled as you read the introduction. But I think I'm really blessed with some amazing leaders, colleagues, people, family around, which have shaped me who I am today and my thinking and so on. So let me share where I grew up and how did it all come together. So I grew up in Lucknow and I did grow up. My parents really put a lot of dreams and courage in my bringing up. And what does it mean? They always sort of shared with me that, you can achieve anything, everything is possible. So, a lot of abundance that one can think about. But at the same time, they have left me just to myself to deal with a lot of situations in life and say, you'll do it, you'll make it, go for it. You don't need spoon feeding at different points of time. And I think that's really created this whole aspect of abundance and courage in life. Again, I go back to a very middle class family, grown up in Lucknow, and they were very kind, so very kind to different people around. And that's where three of my values, through which I live every single day, is abundance, courage, and kindness. And that's where it came from.
Wow, abundance, courage, and
And
kindness.
kindness.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Go on.
And they also instilled this responsibility of making me feel that we are very privileged in life wherever we are, and hence it's almost like a duty, as you said, truly, to ensure that you continue to address some of the issues and challenges which actually makes the world a better place. Sometimes I've gone back to them and said, listen, I don't have time. And sometimes they said, if everybody is going to say the same thing, then who's going to make a difference? So do your bit. And I think that's what I've learned through my childhood. And that's what stayed with me, of almost feeling the responsibility of doing something about things that we feel passionate about.
I've been going through your career, milestones, and to be a global CHRO, at your age, and to be able to wield a position of global influence is something amazing. Very proud of you. Kudos to you for that.
Thank
And
you.
here's my question. I think you're engaging with teams across the Americas, Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, and you're someone that has really come up from a typical Indian, by your own words, middle class background, which is very steeped in, yes, the values that you spoke about, but more than that, it's about the fact that you've led a fairly sheltered upbringing in your childhood. How did that little girl manage what it takes to be the global CHR?
Sure. So maybe, Dr. Soundarya, I'll just share where I work, and what's the context. So we are a B2B specialty packaging company. We feel very proud that we make almost 8 billion tubes. So we were to distribute tubes to everybody in the world. Maybe everybody will have one tube made by EPL. We are market leaders in the laminated tubes that we make, and we partner with some of the biggest brands across the world, which are in the segments of oral care, beauty and cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. We operate out of 10 countries. We have 21 manufacturing plants, and we have around 25 nationalities that we work with across the world. Our own employees, the workforce which works with us on contract terms and condition, but we work on a large scale, highly complex business operations. So that's what we do. Our aim and aspirations really stem from we lead the pack sustainably, right? So we do want to be the leading packaging company which leads with sustainability. So that's really what is very clear in our mind. And hence, how do we drive global success through local excellence, right?
Okay.
And ensure that we really create a culture in the countries and markets which are fit for purpose as we drive global scale, global strategy, employee experience, and we move forward. So that's really where my role sort of today comes in.
And Sonal, I mean, as I was hearing you describe your role, it occurred to me that each one of these markets, each one of these countries is going to expect a very different nuancing of, that global that you spoke about, being global while at the same time being local. What would be that one, thing or one value of EPL that would be common across all of these, markets, which you as the HR leader are articulating?
So I think that's one thing that drives us consistently across the market is leading the pack sustainably.
Ah, so
So we,
sustainability is that
yeah,
mantra, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And that includes people sustainability, and maybe I'll talk about it in the subsequent conversation. But that's what all of us aspire as we partner with our customers and clients across the world.
What does it translate into, really, this sustainability focus? What does it translate into? Are you, and does it mean a different set of initiatives? Does it mean giving back to the community in a manner? Does it involve ESG, environment, social governance? Can you just break it down for us a little bit?
Sure. And thank you for that question because it's very special to our hearts. One is we are one of the top 2% organizations globally who are certified as gold member for EcoVadis. EcoVadis is a global organization which actually certifies members on sustainability. And that is where HR, the way they call it, labor and human rights pillar, is a very important pillar. And that helps us ensure that we are able to drive sustainability, all our people practices. So we call it people sustainability, right? And a couple of things that they assess when they assess an organization is, do we have the right practices, policies, measures around, I would say, human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion, development, health and safety, engagement, reward, how do we pay our people, and how do we work with our communities. So that's where, we drive our people practices through the people sustainability pillar to ensure we are doing our part to be one of the most sustainable companies in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, it is a matter of great interest to me that when you are defining and describing sustainability, it is not just what a packaging company would do by way of defining its sustainability practices, but it's something that goes deeper, above and beyond. And by calling it people sustainability, I think you're really meshing and blending together the fact that this earth is for the people and that the people must do their bit to make sure that this home of ours is protected and is in the right place. Now that
Correct.
brings me to a question, Sonal. um, Today, whether you take diversity, equity, and inclusion measures, or you take environment, social, and governance measures, I think the companies that have been very successful are the ones that are able to see an impact out of this. Um, I want you to tell us what are those kind of inclusive measures. If you were to take DEI, for example, and look at, let's take gender inclusion. What are some of those measures at EPL which have actually created an impact? I mean, all measures create impact. I'm not saying that there are some which do, some which don't, but I think there are some which probably are from a company stating its vision standpoint, and there are some measures which are actually making a big difference on the ground. So, could you share a little bit about the gender inclusive measures at EPL?
Sure. And I think even beyond EPL, one of my experiences, Dr. Soundarya, has been that leadership accountability, acceptance, action, and governance plays a very important role. Any of this agenda would not move as much until you have a leadership voice and ears both, heart and a mind to drive this agenda. And it requires all aspects and elements of it. Right? I'll give you a couple of data points. When I look at EPM, 50% of our countries, specifically the countries, actually have women representation end to end almost around 45 to 50%. And these countries would be around China, Mexico,
Wow.
Brazil, Colombia, Poland. Then we have the second category of our countries, which are around 30 to 40%. And these would be around US, Philippines, Germany, and our own corporate office, because it's a different office, it's a different setup, I would say, the headquarters. And third category is really where the country itself is very low. So a couple of them would be like, I'm sure you would have guessed it by now, it's Egypt and India. But even there, we're around 15 to 20%, right? We're in double digits where we are. So I believe first accepting where we stand, because there are three levers which really make a difference. One is the country where we operate,
Yeah.
because there's a culture in the country, women in workforce, education systems, society. Second is the industry we operate in. So in our industry, how many women are available? Are they choosing education lines in STEM, and so on, right? Third is our own leadership accountability and culture, right? And then, are we able to make our teams successful in an inclusive environment? Right? So, across these three categories of our organization, I think all of them play a role, and that's where we are really putting our effort as a collective leadership team to say, how do we make a difference from where we stand? So, if we are in US, what does it mean for us? If we are in Egypt, then what does it mean for us? And hence, like we say, different strokes for
That's
different
the difference,
folks.
folks.
So, really ensuring that our actions are aligned to the context in which we work, and then everybody is taking the next step. Because, if somebody comes back and say, "Hey, I'm in my job, I'm already very good, so I'm not going to do anything," but that's not right, because all of us sort of work together and run together, right? So that's what we are doing right now to
Uh,
move with the agenda.
I'm going to ask you a slightly offbeat question, more so because the passion that you have towards all things HR is quite something. And I've known this not because of what your LinkedIn profile says or what various articles tell about you. It's because of the conversations you and I have had. And you're somebody that takes this very seriously. So the question is this: when we speak about sustainability, when we speak about women's workforce participation, and you beautifully stated that it's different strokes for different folks, and a country's a local milieu and culture, what the industry is, and what your leadership does. These are the three factors that really make a difference. If you were to kind of pick out maybe something that India can do when it comes to increasing its women's workforce participation, what do you think that would be, Somi?
Sure. Again, a question very dear to my heart. And, I go back in 2010 or 2011 when we were trying to build this program, even in HUL supply chain, where we had almost no women in manufacturing. And I think a great journey after that, everybody has contributed to. Right? I think one is having women in STEM.
Mm.
So, early on, having that interest and desire to really make a difference. Second is on the society and community we come from, because there are so many girls, there's so many, girl students who are actually dreaming and desiring, but they don't have the opportunity to progress. So, if there is a way that we can actually build all of this together. And third is finding opportunity, and finding opportunity in a way where we don't create fear, but we create opportunity. And when there will be an opportunity, there will be a trade off, right? I was reading an article yesterday, and it said, I don't remember the article, but it said very beautifully, when you hire, say, male colleagues, you assume you will make the best hire. But the moment you're hiring a women colleague, five people will say, ensure that the background and experience and skill set is fine. If we trust the managers in the first case, then why don't we trust the managers in the
Wow.
second case?
Wow.
So it stayed with me a lot, given we were about to speak today. And I said,
That's
it's so true.
profound. That's really
Yeah.
profound. And I think you have kind of really hit the nail on the head, Sonal, by pointing out the fact that as much as skilling, as much as opportunities, as much as visibility, I think what women need by way of investment in them is the trust and faith that organizations can actually keep in them. I think
Yeah.
that's really what you just mentioned over there. One more question relating to the work that EPL does. Now, keeping sustainability as your core focus and looking at various ways and means in which women's workforce participation across the different countries in which EPL is present can be enhanced, which I'm sure looks at women in leadership, looks at various aspects of how that empowerment can actually happen. Would you say, this is again just a hypothetical question, would you say that being a B2B business, which actually sells to various organizations like your HULs and your PNGs, and any kind of an FMCG or other sort of an organization which requires a packaging and a a paper related sort of a solution, is there a way in which this goodness that EPL projects, which is all about, and we often talk about this concept of business is good, which means unless the business truly looks at goodness being embedded within all of its processes, then taking it to being becoming a good business is difficult. So, do you think that this extension of the goodness of EPL to your customers and partners, is that something that you're actively working on? Is that something that is there within your purview, Sonal?
Sure. So, two things I'd like to highlight, Dr. Soundarya. One is a lot of our large customers, when they start working with us, there are certain audits that happen. And in a few places, having an audit of ensuring that we have good labor practices, we ensure that we have healthy workplaces, safety is important, is a part of that audit. So I think, it helps build that co-accountability and co-ownership of the agenda together. The second one that I'd like to call out is we launched recently a program called EPL Impact. And if you see Impact Pack is the packaging,
Okay.
PACK. So
Okay.
EPL Impact, where we want to work with our communities in our own way to ensure that we are doing good and taking the communities together. Now, this is an agenda through CSR, which is mandated by law in India.
Okay.
Right? So India has a law around CSR. However, we said if we were to extend this in some way to take a step, because it might not be required by law, is it possible? And I must say that some of our countries have actually started taking the next step, the
Wow.
first step. So when I went to US, there's an organization called God's Pits Crew where they work on disaster management, and some of our employees are actually volunteers in that organization. Our Poland team, participated in a run for breast cancer. Our teams in Brazil are, flowing out a program which is around helping some of the communities around us. So, like you said, if you build intentionality, I think it's not always about the budgets and money, but even within the resources that we have, we can actually build a roadmap and an agenda. Is it simple? Actually, no, because sometimes it looks like where is it in the KPI? But I think if we are all committed, it's not impossible, and I think we can always take one step ahead of where we are.
Your passion for DEI, your passion for inclusion is something that, I mean, many forums you have yourself shared, spoken about it, and we have talked about it. It's one thing to be passionate about something like DEI, it's another thing to get your leaders also motivated in that larger perspective. Now, you work with global leaders of all your, business outposts across the world. How what do you do by way of resources or support? What do you give them? What do you arm them with for them to actually take this movement of inclusion, whether it's gender inclusion or it's creating a diverse and equitable workplace in their respective countries with that local focus? How do you do it? I mean, to me, it seems that that's the big chunk of work in translating your vision into action. How do you do it, Sonal?
Yeah, and again, a very important question, Dr. Soundarya, because at the end of the day, if we are not able to build infrastructure, if we don't have the right doors and whistles and bells, I think this program will not work. Right? And I'm still calling it a program because it requires a concerted effort from everybody to progress. Right? So, few things. We have our global CEO, Mr. Anand Kripalu, who's personally very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And through his career, I think he's really made a difference to this agenda. So you have a global CEO who's also very passionate and aligned and maybe have more wisdom uh, on the subject, right? So that really works. So I do want to call that out, that your leader has to be totally committed, not because it's an agenda, but I think you truly believe in it. So that's one. Second is, in India, for example, we had a very low base. And then we said, what will we do to make a difference? And I must acknowledge the India manufacturing team came together, and there were multiple areas of infrastructure, inclusion, ensuring that we get to the right opportunity, being crafted out to ensure that we make a positive progress. And third, while it sounds slow, but I think bringing that awareness is very important. And I have learned through this process, Dr. Saundarya, because I have gone to certain markets and said, listen, can I know what is the women population which is available to this workforce and who we can engage for the partnership? And I realize it's very difficult. You don't have women leadership roles in packaging or manufacturing enough, even when I look outside India. And hence, having that awareness, taking that extra step, because all of these steps will lead to certain actions one day. But if you don't make those steps, then we are only running like headless chickens, because we're saying, hey, we need to hire, and you're not able to hire. And then, why are we not able to hire? And then we're just fighting with each other. So I think that's something that is very important to understand, appreciate, and then challenge ourselves to say, okay, within the guardrails and guidelines that we have, what we have, how do we still shift and make the difference? And that conversation and engagement is very important.
I absolutely agree. But what metrics do you use? Now, having played this consultative role that you do in making sure that your various leaders in the different countries are on the process, and yes, Anand is an incredible leader. I remember one of our earliest, diversity audit projects was for Mondelez. At that time, it was Kraft, and Anand was at the helm of affairs. And I remember the absolutely genuine passion with which he kind of, moved that entire process along. So I know that that makes a gigantic difference. My question is, how do you measure these things? What are those metrics which you trust?
Sure. So the first matrix I trust is just the representation.
Okay.
It's almost like what and how much revenue we generate, right? So, what's the representation? The second matrix that I trust is then going deeper into what are the different categories, segment, what are the different jobs, roles, so that we can narrow down to what is the problem to solve for. Where do we have the biggest challenge? So that's the second one that we track across country, across markets, across units, till a unit level. So we start global, then we go to region, then we go to country, and then we go to unit. So across, right? The third one we use is what is a hiring percentage of women in the jobs that we hire. We are almost around 50%, so we made some shift in those numbers. And then we also look at multiple other enablers. Do we have the right pay across different groups of diverse workforce? Do we have the right engagement? Are there very specific challenges that we are facing? Recently, our board, and I must call that out, our board sort of asked us, every quarter we have a section in our board meeting where we present our, I would say, our women landscape from a safety perspective. So I present around sexual harassment and what are we doing in this space, and are there cases that require attention? Is there a theme that's coming out of the organization? And trust me, when we have that conversation, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not about come and present for 2 minutes, present a slide and go away. But I think that's the seriousness which is getting anchored right now, which helps us move the agenda. So we realized, for example, we have a very well laid out POSH Act in India.
Okay.
And similarly, We have some of the countries require us to have a very structured methodology on any kind of sexual harassment or bullying or harassment kind of cases to be adopted. But in some cases, it was a very high level policy that we will address if something like this happens. So recently, all our countries are complying with almost the written procedures of
Mhm.
how do you address, how do you communicate, what is the methodology, how do you investigate, and then how do you close any case. And any case across the world on sexual harassment gets highlighted to me personally.
Wow.
So that's the seriousness.
Yeah, the fact that you've taken something that's a best practice in India, because India is among those very few elite countries which has a proper posh act and has a really clear method of investigation and assuming responsibility for the actions, and you have just taken that and you have made it a global sort of a best practice, is it, across the countries? That's
Yeah, and
fantastic.
we've also looked at the country nuance because in some countries, you actually don't have a legal representative on the
Yeah, you
committee.
may not, you may
You
not.
may not. So we've actually gone by the sensitivities in the country, what's required by the law. But broadly, I think just ensuring that this matter is taken
But
as
this means that,
seriously.
yeah, this means that the women within the EPL world, whichever part of the globe they are in, they're going to feel safe.
Yeah,
Because there is this aspect of course, sexual harassment isn't only related to women. But
correct.
nevertheless, you do have that framework, which is now going to be, you will speak the same language across all of your different global offices.
Correct.
So I think that's truly a big move in that way. So yeah, I mean, I would say that to get this going is something that many large organizations are struggling with. So kudos to you that this has been now taken and made a practice, with regard to assuring the safety, ensuring that there is a professional way of dealing with this. This is fantastic. We are kind of almost out of time, and after this, we'll have to kind of go into the rapid fire. Uh,
I have a question of you, if that's okay with you.
Thank you so much. What's that? Go ahead. We have, of course, had many chats. But tell me.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, Dr. Soundarya, when you started this organization purely by passion, you wanted to make a difference. You've actually experimented with a lot of different groups of women candidates out there, waiting, excited, passionate, who really wants to make a difference, right? And world is not so easy for everyone. All of us know that, right? So, how have you been able to keep your passion going? Because I'm sure in 2000s when you started it, again, the companies were not so much aware. There was still some biases, challenges. So how have you taken some of those steps
That's a key question.
without any shy, without any guilt, but with strength, with wisdom, and with just the commitment to make a difference?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sonali, for that question. Avatar was started, 25, almost 25 years ago in 2000, actually, Y2K. We were a Y2K baby. And, the idea was very simple. There has to be a reason why more women need to be in the workplace, and why aren't they there? What is it that I'm seeing that organizations are missing? Was the question. It's a very simple, straightforward thing. And I mean, despite all of the progress that has been made, despite the fact that today companies really see, an effective culture as one that has a significant extent of gender inclusion and gender diversity in it, I would say, the whole thing is still such work in progress. Until probably India reaches a 50-50 gender balance, I think what we do will be relevant. So that passion, which you spoke about, which caused the creation of Avatar and subsequently that ecosystem building. Because the minute we said we want more women in the workplace, and that is one of the demonstrable, measurable metrics of progress, of development. Any country, and we want Viksit Bharat. If we want Viksit Bharat, we need more women in the workplace. And yes, from the time when I started Avatar, where it was, just below the double digits or just above 20%, below 20%, that number, to where it is today, it's at about 37%. India has made that progress in those 25 years, but there is still so much to be done. So I think, it's that passion which continues. I think it's very personal. It's exactly like what we spoke about earlier on in this conversation, where I think, we take that responsibility on ourselves. We say
Yeah.
that whether somebody does it or not, it has to be me to do this. And I think Avatar that way has been very fortunate to have the support of amazing leaders like you, organizations like EPL, which have consistently wanted that progress. So you keep coming back to us, you make us push the bar. You know,
Mm.
you tell us, give us a solution like this. Tell us how do we work on it. And everything is bespoke. Everything is customized. It's not like there are these, pre-created products which are just there. So I think it's just this wonderful journey, and I think it's getting more and more beautiful. Today, I think India is at a place where this imperative, the gender imperative, the women's imperative of having more women in the workplaces, I think it's just become so clear. It's articulated in every conversation that we hear, and when we work with the government or when we work with corporates or we work with educational institutions, it is resoundingly clear. So I think, we all are in this beautiful journey together, and it's great that you asked me this question.
Thank you. This is very inspiring. This is very inspiring.
Thank you. Now we move to the rapid fire round, and we won't give you too much time. You'll have to quickly and instinctively answer. What's your favorite way of celebrating diversity at work?
Okay. So for me, it's micro inclusions because I feel we can do the big things, but the small things that we do really make a difference. So I have a few of my little hacks that I use as micro inclusions to ensure that I am able to access and create that culture.
Oh, lovely. That's beautiful. Micro intuitions. Folks, that's a great hack which Sona uses. Okay, the next one. A simple sustainability idea that your organization follows. I mean, you spoke about being big on sustainability. Something simple which EPL does. What would that be?
So one is setting the right ambition,
Ah,
staying with it, and I must say I'm very proud of the way our investments, our decisions are made to ensure we are moving this journey in an accelerated manner on sustainability, and then ensuring it's all integrated versus the product, process, people, and we're not leaving any of the three behind is something that we're truly committed to.
super. So when you don't have a gap and the whole thing is kind of meshed together and you've looked at it from every aspect, then that kind of moves that sustainability along in a seamless way. Lovely.
Correct.
Fantastic. Okay, here's my final one. What's an inspiring inclusion moment that you personally witnessed?
So, I've always been, always is not right. I think most of the times, many of us would have been the women in the management team. And to a large extent, personally, I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it because I just felt this is how the world works. Like I go back to my upbringing, I just felt this is fine and this is okay. And when I joined EPL, a lot of people sort of reached out in different countries to just acknowledge that we have a women in the management team was something which was very heartening because I stepped back and said, why is it being called out? Why is it being noticed? And I thought not just in India, because I myself had this bias saying we are only low in India, but everywhere else the world is perfect on this subject. But I think I really made a note of it, saying, okay, it does mean something different, and that to me was a special moment on this journey.
Oh, this is beautiful, and more than anything else, I think the fact that we kind of noticed it and sort of put a pin on it, that's fantastic. Sonal, thank you so very much for joining us today on this podcast. It's been fantastic chatting with you. As always, wishing you more and more power and influence to do amazing things, to really take this vision that you have of, being the responsible person who creates intentional change around you forward and in many, many different ways.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I really thank you for giving me this opportunity, because it helps me reflect um, and make a few more changes
Yes.
as we go along.
Yeah. Thank you. And folks, that is a wrap on this episode of Diversity. And I'm sure, just like me, you would have found a lot of thought points and mind openers in what Sonal Jain, Global CHRO of EPL Limited, shared with us as part of this podcast. Stay tuned, and we're going to bring you lots and lots more of inspiration. Thank you.